Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hope I'm audible. Thank you, D2C Summit for having us here to talk about what we feel is the next journey in physical spaces. I think I have a tough task. I think obviously Google had a great presentation of how AI is really changing everything around us. I think we are here to talk about a very different topic. We are talking about how really physical spaces need to evolve in the age that we really kind of live in. I think one of the core beliefs that we have is that every time the core form of media changes, we feel that media and communication has a massive impact on how commerce is conducted. So there was an age where oral medium was used. There was an age where print advertising really came about. Brands got built. Consumption got influenced. There was an age where television created an impact. I think today we feel we are in the age where social media is the core form of media for a large part of consumers. And that has given rise to new behaviors in terms of how products are getting discovered by consumers, how brands are talking to consumers. Content has started playing a role. That has an impact on how so many new age brands have got built around us. But really, when you really go back and think that if, let's say, these are all these new age brands that is getting built around us and content is the driver for a lot of these brands, how does the world of physical retail really evolve for it? And the reality is that a large part of this country at least, which is 45% of India, is born in this century. And they have been digital natives. They have been spending 3, 4, 5 hours on social channels each and every day. And they've got new influences in their life. So we feel that this entire idea where brand consumers, creators, influencers, content is really shaping a new retail narrative. And how will kind of spaces evolve to this narrative? I think it is a new age where I think a consumer today cares more about maybe what is back of the pack than front of the pack. They care about what are they consuming, what is the impact of it, is it socially responsible, what this ingredient does for me. I think this new narrative, which brands such as yours have been driving, is what consumers really want to know of. I think digital content delivered through Instagram really kind of caters to that very well. It drives awareness among consumers. It drives, let's say, conversion and new consumers who can start consuming it. But really, it's about this shopper who yet kind of is present in physical spaces. I think the earlier speaker mentioned that only 7% of commerce is happening digitally. The consumer yet really is going to be part of physical retail. Those are gathering spaces for a country like ours. But at the same time, we feel that with this narrative of social media for 7, 8 years, which has become so dominant, that narrative has really not got transformed into retail spaces. In some sense, for the last 50, 60, 70 years, retail spaces have stayed the same, right? It's the same kind of space where it's really not evolved to a narrative how if social media is consumed for 2, 3 hours, if new brands are getting born out over there, if content is getting consumed to really discover product, discover brands, build narratives around brand, how do these spaces really evolve? And I think that's our idea where we feel that there is an era of experiential commerce that really needs to come alive. The reason why consumers will go to a physical space, is it going to be a transaction or is it going to be something more than an act of transaction? There was an era where, let's say, general trade came about and there was a certain behavior that consumers had. We moved to modern retail that really introduced new products, new categories, created spaces in the country where consumers could spend time on. We then lived in an era of e-commerce where really assortment became unlimited because the medium allowed that to happen. I think we are currently in the era of quick commerce where I think the speed has become everything. And I think consumers are now very used to all of this, at least the consumers that a lot of founders in this room are really dealing with, who are younger consumers, consuming new age brands, spending on value-added consumption. And this consumers behave in a certain way. They have got a new lingo. This consumers got a very short shelf life in terms of how long do they really consume. They're so comfortable with really building their perception about a brand through content. So it is not an era where you have to do large-scale advertising, generate demand, build distribution, and consumption would happen. It is an era where you can post a content consumer may like it, and commerce could happen in minutes, and delivery could happen in 10 minutes. But in this era, if you have to really think about physical retail, we truly believe that experience is more important to be delivered than just the mere act of a transaction. If the consumer is seeking a transaction, maybe digital commerce is a much more efficient channel for all of us to kind of use. But if the consumer has taken the pain of going into a physical retail space, then what are things that we need to really deliver to them, right? And therefore, the idea that maybe physical retail will need a new kind of thinking. It will need a thinking to get consumer out of their homes and do only shopping via their phones. It will need elements of what will they seek when they kind of come into spaces. Therefore, we feel that experiential-led commerce is the reason why consumers will come to physical spaces. They will maybe want to kind of experience what the brand is all about, want to touch, feel, try it. Maybe really drive a lot of awareness in physical spaces. The transaction potentially after that could happen anywhere, right? I think we all talk about omni-channel, but I think the idea in omni-channel is really separating where transaction happens and where experience needs to be delivered, where brand perception and brand building potentially needs to happen, and drive that narrative to change really the idea of physical retail in itself. I think the other idea that we really believe is that there are new actors that have come into play when really one thinks about how today brands are communicating with consumers. I think the brand and customer always existed. I think there is an equally important actor that is now in our mix, which is a creator. The creator has started kind of influencing how brands are perceived in the mind of consumers. They have started playing a role in really creating content around things that matter to consumers who have their own set of followings and really kind of become part of a journey of consumption in the life of consumers. So I think what are we doing? We are building Broadway. I think for us, Broadway is an idea which will potentially bring alive experiential commerce in new age consumption spaces and also build only for new age brands. So we want to really create a space for a younger India. We want to create a space which is beyond transaction, where we want to drive experiences. We want to create a space where potentially brands can really bring alive their narrative, their storytelling in physical retail form, where you can not only drive the act of transaction, but drive the act of experience for consumers to enable discovery of new products, new brands, which all of us are building in some way. We are opening our first store soon in Delhi, followed by Hyderabad, followed by Mumbai. The first store, we have signed up a bunch of brands. But really the idea is that what do we enable in this physical space, right? How do we really create a lot of events, a lot of experiences, create spaces which have a different meaning in retail? And I'll tell you a few examples of this. So let's say if you're a beauty and personal care brand, is it just enough for you to place your product on a shelf? Or would you need to enable storytelling with the consumers that what is so special about my product? What is the core USP? What is the ingredient that I'm selling? Why is that ingredient important to you? I think without that storytelling, for any new age brand to communicate to consumers in a physical retail form gets difficult. Therefore, what we are at least attempting with Broadway is that if you're a beauty and personal care brand, this is a large departmental store, about 40,000 square feet in size, but it has a salon inside the store. And the role of the salon is not to sell services to consumers, but only to enable trial sampling for a beauty brand out over there. If a consumer can come in and discover a brand, if a consumer can come and try and sample the brand, if a consumer can potentially listen to a creator or an influencer about what is the core USP of the brand, the act of a customer then therefore building awareness about that product, about that brand, through in some sense a content-led environment in a physical space, added with an idea of touch and feel, will enable them to actually build their reason to consume that product, consume that brand. So therefore, after that really the transaction can take place in the store, the transaction can place on your D2C channel, but use physical spaces to drive that experience, drive that storytelling narrative, because that's the core around which new brands are built fundamentally. So yeah, Broadway is a space where there is always something going on. We do feel that this is a generation that is actually aggregating multiple experiences at the same time, and therefore retail spaces not only need to kind of do the act of retailing, they not only need to do the act of, let's say, delivering all these events and experiences. So we want to do maybe 10, 15 events a day, create event spaces inside a store, potentially a salon. We have to think the same way for health and wellness in terms of how those brands will need experience spaces like a consultation room, maybe a sampling bar. Can you really try a protein powder before buying it? Maybe you need to have a stage where larger events can take place. I think so. That's how we are building Broadway, where we want consumers to come in. We want consumers to really kind of not only come and do retail there, come and discover new products and new brands, maybe meet up with their friends, maybe kind of do some celebration out of their shop, maybe even create content, because even today, brand through their storytelling are a performer in the space. Consumers are a performer because they are creating content every time they are into physical spaces, and creators are also part of this journey. So Broadway's first mission is to really create an experience-led space, enable brands to be discovered beyond maybe Instagram and the phone, enable brands to be experienced through touch and feel, and enable brands not only to be present with consumers in physical spaces, but also help them create content for there, because for the first time, brands can create content with live consumers, not just through creators that they're used to. We feel that, what I mentioned a little while earlier, that Broadway needs to be an ecosystem that needs to bring together the brands, the consumers, and the creators. So how do you really make a space which is relevant for creators as well? So we've put a studio inside the store where brands can actually create content from retail spaces itself. We have created a place where maybe UGC content will be created for all the brands out of there. We have created a space where creators and brands can meet and really decide how they want to kind of do partnerships for the future, so on and so forth. But at the same time, we recognize that brands need a new way to kind of access physical retail. For a lot of young brands, physical retail a lot of times is the first kind of twist with how they kind of experience or go into physical as a channel. But they can't really enable, 3-year lock-ins. They can't spend money on 6-month security deposits. So can we really create and make it very, very easy for brands to participate in physical retail? Because we are not large brands who have been around for a long time and have balance sheets to support it. So what we need to really do is make it as easy as you going and participating maybe in a WeWork type of an office space, but in a retail context. So brands can come in, pay a monthly fee. That monthly fee enables them to get access to physical retail spaces. They don't need to do CapEx out of there. They don't need to lock in for 3 years. You can come for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. You can use all the experience spaces that exist out over there. You can kind of use all the physical retail capability that Broadway provides for you to come into physical retail for the first time. Do storytelling through events and experiences in the space through all the kind of event spaces created in this in Broadway. You can also go and create content from here, because there is a team that will help you even plan and create content which can be used for digital amplification later. So that's what we do with Broadway Studios as well, where how do we enable brands to create content? How do we enable brands to do creator collaborations? How do we really enable brands not just to reach out to consumers in the physical retail through experiences, but convert that into content for digital amplification? So these are some of the examples that all the different 100, 120, 150 odd brands across different spaces are doing, because we feel that consumers need a new narrative in physical experiences. They no longer just need a product which they can buy from. They can buy it from your D2C channel if they know you. But consumers want to come and experience the brand. They want to touch feel the brand. They want to go deeper into what's the story behind the brand, and how will that get delivered is through all the different experiences that brands really do from spaces. So we do want to enable this. We want to call this a new form of commerce. We want to call this experiential commerce. And every customer can actually be their own showstopper on that day. So thank you, everyone. That's all.